Всім доброго дня.
Hello, everyone. Please take your seats, and we are starting our briefing. Today, we are presenting the report of National Anti-Corruption Bureau Ukraine and Specialized Anti-Corruption Prosecution. And I would like to pay your attention to the safety measures in case if we have air raid alert announced, we will monitor the situation and monitor threats for Kyiv. In case of the threat, please follow the employees of the National Bureau into the shelter, which is located nearby. I invite the director of NABU, Semen, Kryvonos. Hello, dear friends, dear viewers and journalists, and thank you very much for finding time and coming to listen to our briefing. You will see numbers on the screen right now and regarding the number of suspects and the acts that were issued. But today we would like to mention how to protect all of that, how to make it so that the National Anti-Corruption Bureau and Specialized Anti-Corruption Prosecution and all the anti-corruption infrastructure can move forward and can bring the cases to a logical ending so that all the suspects get fair sentences, and we still have a range of urgent issues that are unresolved, complicated issues like creating the expert institution and also amendments to criminal code of Ukraine and the staff and employees and everything. All those things without you, without media, without civil society, without international partners, all these changes are very difficult to make without you. So, of course, we are going to focus on other issues and on wonderful implementation, and also like we will send the loud cases to the court, and we will have the pre-court investigation, pre-trial investigation of cases, and we as society, as a state, how to work on strengthening anti-corruption infrastructure and to work on moving towards the European Union because it's part of our obligations. And how do we make it so? How do we conduct the reforms so deep and systemically that the future attacks to the future to NABU and SAPO are just impossible? Thank you. Hi, can you hear me? Hello, everyone. I am really glad to greet you at our presentation of report for the first quarter of 2020, first half of the year 2026, and we want to talk about what NABU and SAPO team has made, but we also want to talk about the problems that are existing and that have been unresolved for years, and that only speaks that the corruption in Ukraine is not reducing. It either remains on the same level, or if we are talking about corruption, that some corruption is even growing. And the state demonstrates that the state has no political will to fight the corruption in proper manner. What I'm talking about, I mean that still some problems are unresolved that the director has mentioned, and every half a year we just continue reminding that unresolved issues there are with expert institution, with canceling these laws amendments that give the possibility to corruptioners to avoid responsibility and liability, and still we have unresolved issue with providing the powers to SAPO to start the investigation regarding people's deputies independently and to conduct some investigative actions, because we are stressing that our responsibility is to investigate such crimes against people's deputies. At the same time, we can't even start such an investigation, and that creates a big problem. So we should be independent from the will of the other authority that doesn't belong to anti-corruption infrastructure. Then extradition issue is very important, and creation of investigative groups that give us the possibility to investigate the transnational corruption, because most schemes nowadays are not just limited by the borders of Ukraine. So most cases, they are in different jurisdictions. If we are talking about Midas case, then a lot of jurisdictions are engaged, and we have such a necessity of creation of such investigating international groups with other jurisdictions so that as fast as possible we can get evidence in this very criminal case very fast and very efficiently and exchange the information with prosecutors from other jurisdictions. So it's not the exhaustive list, because these are the problems that have been existing for quite some time and we need to discuss those. And before we start our video, I would like to mention huge gratitude to the staff of NABU and SAPO because they are making just fantastic work every day under a huge pressure, under constant attention from the society as well. And I would like to thank the independent media and Ukrainian society and international partners for your constant support of anti-corruption infrastructure. In the first half of year 2026, NABU's legalization for 160 million hryvnias, the former head of the president's office, we have a huge number of suspects and the large-scale corruption in the Supreme Court. 91 million hryvnias were stolen. The attempt to give a bribe, $1 million US were given as a bribe. Legalization of $2 million US. Ivano-Frankivsk, bribes were given. Ministry of Defense, $690 million were demanded. So, suspects, 2 people's deputies, and others. In general, 360 investigations, 107 suspects, 106 people were in the court. 206 billion hryvnias, 864 and even more million hryvnias were returned to the state. 139 million given to help our army, and we continue our fight. So now we are coming to the things we came here for, Q&A session. So please raise your hand. Serhiy, you were the first one, please. Thank you very much. Hello, Serhiy Bosak, Ukrainian News. Thank you very much for the invitation, for the possibility to join the report and to ask questions. I have a question about Enerhoatom and Midas case. Soon it's going to be 1 year since this case is being investigated via Enerhoatom. And there was like approximately $100 million taken. So Enerhoatom is and together with the data from Enerhoatom. So in your opinion, are they the injured party? Because they received the profit, the biggest profit in the history of the company last year. And at the same time, the loss is 110 million. So can we compare the financial issues? So the losses are 100 million, but then they are claiming that they've got the biggest income in all their history. So can you comment on that? Thank you very much. If they have the biggest income, then probably they have something to steal from, but actually these are not interconnected numbers, because when we cannot just compare that. So as of now, we have the pre-trial investigation that is going on laundering the money, and we plan to end that on time and open the case materials, and we inform the suspects about the investigation. So basically, is Enerhoatom the injured party? As of now, the status of the injured party in the criminal proceeding, there is no such status, as far as I know, again. But I would like to underline that according to the investigation, $100 million went via certain laundering. So I don't want to get into details because there's significant progress. However, we are going to talk about that when it's time, when it's the right time, and we will also give the information in our official sources. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, Oleg, please. Oleg Sukhov, Kyiv Independent. I just wanted to ask, is there a progress with requests to Israel regarding Mindic and Zuckerman? Is there some response, some progress? And the other question about conflict with the security service of Ukraine is it still going on? So there were so do you know whether SSU employees have something to do with that, etc.? Because you have an investigation in Magomed Rasulov and other NABU representatives. Still, what are the prospects with those cases? Thank you very much, Oleg. And I was saying multiple times, we have no conflict with anybody, neither with SSU, nor with Prosecution General, nor with the President's Office, etc. We don't have conflicts. We have different category. We have detected or under detection some illegal actions, unlawful actions of our employees. And when we publish that, and when we are saying that here we identified some equipment just to hear the discussions, these are, well, again, we are talking the different, it's not a conflict. Those are unlawful actions of the employees of SSU. And when we are installing certain equipment and we are conducting the investigative actions, we are acting in accordance with the law in order to provide evidence in the court. Do our colleagues act the same way? I have doubts. And it's not a single, it's not one case, because there are several cases. We just don't publish everything because it's protection of our materials and information. If, for example, we are seeing some actions from our employee that was conducting some actions, his duties on that, we don't publish the fact. But we know that it exists, and literally 2 weeks ago that happened, but we don't publish that to protect the data. And what is the problem? The problem is not that law enforcement agencies are investigating maybe unlawful actions of NABU's employees, because nobody is saint, so that might happen. First of all, they have to act within the framework of our legislation. And secondly, these investigative actions, like investigations and everything, it is not in order to find the real spies or corruptioneers, but it's just to learn who do we see, what are we investigating, what kind of investigative actions we are planning, because I can say persuasively that this activity is conducted all the time. We are monitoring the registry of court decisions and various registries like Safe City, where our cars are going, and relocation of our detectives. So, of course, we are taking measures. We are trying to avoid providing the information about the pre-trial investigation because it's confidential. But at the same time, a huge amount of resource is given just to understand what we are planning. So we are getting that all the time, and that's the main problem. It's not a conflict, it's not a conflict. Wonderful working relationship, but we are encouraging all our colleagues to act within the legal framework, because if they catch the traitor or the spy, then yeah, sure. And if this is only targeting at learning about what we are investigating, then this is causing huge questions. What's the aim of that? Why? Who do you protect with that? So as of now, we had no answer regarding that. So the relevant requests were sent, but we are waiting for the reaction of the other party. Thank you very much. Volodymyr, please. Hi, my name is Volodymyr Fomichov. The question. Ukrainska Pravda, Ukrainian Truth, has such an information. I read it there. They are saying that there is first figurant of the bandage case that agreed to cooperate with the investigation. Tell us, please, who is this person and is that information true? Well, we never speak about the fact of cooperation of certain people, so we won't comment on that. We can't say that, it's the issue of safety of certain people and in prospect to just have a proper investigation, like pre-trial investigation, because you're working in Ukrainian Truth. Ask your colleagues. I'm joking. Thank you very much. Georgi, please. Thank you very much, Georgi Shpev, Radio Svoboda. We learned that on the 31st of July, you and the case investigation about legalization of money, and in particular, the figurants of the cases gained assets in the United Arab Emirates in some residential complex. Do I understand it correctly that United Arab Emirates is the jurisdiction that helps us to understand whether there is certain real estate or not? And if not, then maybe you gain the information via some other sources, and will we be able to see the results of the investigation that we are writing about, that people's deputy owns some real estate in the United Arab Emirates, etc.? And do we have the possibility to get the information from there? Well, we never had, and we don't have still the possibility to get full information from that country. But in this case, we have a joint international working group together with representatives of different countries, including France. And France has intergovernmental agreements with the United Arab Emirates, and they can gain information from there. So thanks to this cooperation, we have the information. I would like to add, we have some additional tools, of course, but this process, unfortunately, nowadays is not moving in the Ukrainian parliament. So we were ratifying the convention on combating bribery. It gives some wide tools about exchanging the operative information based on certain task forces based on this organization. But unfortunately, now the draft law was adopted in the first reading. But again, we want to improve the liability. And then also in the parliament, it is not changing. Okay, please. Yulia Zubchenko, Postrov TV channel. We see that in the first half a year, in your report, it's 76 convicts. What number of convicts are top level authorities? And do you analyze as NABU and SAPO when there are some loud suspicions? Why in the trial that was not confirmed? Can you please make an example when the suspicion was not confirmed by the court? How long? Because it's not the issue to NABU and SAPO. Now we are limited with the term, maximum 12 months about from the date when we inform about the suspicion. And then we open the case materials, we send it to the court. We have wonderful dynamics about bringing the cases to court. In 99% of cases where we inform about our suspicion, they are sent to court after the pre-trial investigation. We are analyzing each decision where there is a sentence, not to repeat certain mistakes, like why the judge came to certain conclusion when we have the sentence that is defending the suspect. And after we get some clarifications from the Supreme Court, they might see that certain evidence is not acceptable, and the percentage, our percentage is higher than in general all over Ukraine. But again, we are researching the conclusions of judges just not to repeat our mistakes. But again, one more thing, very often it is published, we are seeing some dirty information campaigns, and sometimes people, deputies, are very happy, and some Telegram channels when we have the such cases when the suspect was not sentenced. So, Fax has cases not just investigated by NABU and SAPO, but also by the main office of national police, etc., and many other law enforcement agencies, and there the rate is much higher. And that was basically the case that you are saying. Like when we are talking about facts, number of cases, we need to understand what cases are coming from NABU and SAP and were investigated by NABU and SAP, and the cases that were sent to VAX, because again, it doesn't matter that like other body was investigating that, but that belongs to the Supreme Court. Unfortunately, now I'm not ready to talk about numbers. I can only say about the number of, about the categories, about the number of acquittals. So actually, like 4 are higher than 1 category A, then for a second category, then 1 head of state enterprises for courts of all the levels, and then 2 deputies of regional councils, and then from the city of Kyiv, and 26, and other are authorities and lawyers. From the latest, well, we have real sentences. We had 8-9 years, for example. People were convicted for 8-9 years. If like sometimes, well, it depends. If you are talking about an average, I'm not ready to say about that. It is not the right thing to talk about the average, because sometimes they can get like fine, sometimes they are deprived of freedom. So we cannot give the average. Like in the average, this is how long it takes like to punish a person. Oksana, please. Hello, Oksana Hrontiev, Interfax Ukraine. My question are more general and more about the war. First, about shelters. I understand it's not the question to you, but in the situation that happens right now, with a minimal number of shelters, not just in Kyiv, but actually all over the country, the consequence of certain corruption actions. Do you have some criminal cases or maybe creative developments that would speak about the potential, like maybe the persons under your investigation, maybe they are guilty in the situation that happens? And second question related to war, its defense. I want to ask about the tendencies, corruption crimes in defense field, whether they changed during this time, and as of now, are they threatening the defense capability of our country, and how serious this challenge is? Well, of course, I will start with the last. That corruption is impacting the defense capability of Ukraine. And if we are talking about the crimes and the nature of crimes in the field of defense, the defense is in the focus of our attention. That is one of the highest priorities that we are spending most of the resource of NABU and SAP to investigate those. And you know that now there is a huge number, like transformation of corruption is happening in the following way. So all of a sudden, like some big suppliers of like weapons, they get some beneficiary owners on some like agreements or unopened sources, and there are some impactful authorities that are there in the parliament, in the state, etc., and they become co-beneficiaries of those institutions. And on the at a first glance, it might look as a usual procurement of like ammunition and weapons, but thanks to such policies, sometimes we see that the competition is basically destroyed, and it's very hard to investigate and to prove that, because we are spending a lot of resource, and we are seeing financial transactions that are very often related, because there are like hundreds, for example. We are seeing some end beneficiaries and their impact, and we are documenting the relevant crimes. However, again, I would like to repeat myself, corruption is undermining the defense capability and the issue of shelters, because corruption is making state apparatus inefficient. Accordingly, inefficient state apparatus cannot organize properly the process of procurement and construction of the relevant network of shelters or some protection, etc. So corruption equals to inefficiency due to different reasons. Yeah. Corruption in defense field. Let us come back to that. Look, can we combat that kind of corruption with the forces of NABU and SAPO? No, because it's a huge number of procurements, huge amount of money. It's joint work of anti-corruption bodies and the ministry itself. In the last half a year, the ministry for the first time came to NABU in order for NABU to provide the risk analysis where the corruption in defense forces is possible. And it might be symbiosis when the Ministry of Defense is also taking actions to reduce the corruption. We can only investigate certain cases and we can highlight and how corruption works. And then the ministry is making some administrative decisions just to avoid some further steps of corruption development. On our own, we cannot do that because we have lack of detectives even just to investigate such huge cases. Is the corruption existing? Yes, it exists there. How do we cope with that? There are some steps how to do that. But for example, like $1 million on drone procurement. So this is elementary. The company cannot win the tender without the bribe. So what do we have to do? We need to implement the administrative resource, transparent tenders, transparent procurements in order for the company that is offering the high quality and cheap product wins. That's it. Thank you very much. Next question. Hello, my name is Angelina Shorokhova, editor, Censor.net. Two questions. They are not related to each other, but I would like to hear your response. Who is Vova from the Klymenko case? And second, how did it coincide that this Stefanishina's suspicion was given after her ambassador was dismissed? Well, first of all, we did not publish the data from Medic films. As for the suspicion, we inform about the suspicion when we get a quite big number of materials. So when we have enough materials, and then the prosecutor just reads all the materials, and then he approves certain procedural document, and we are giving the suspicion. We are announcing the suspicion on the day of when it is signed. I responded this question. We did not publish the data that you are referring to. I would like to add, to avoid manipulations, please name at least one example when NABU in general said the surname and name of at least one person, the suspect. So why do you ask the question? I'm sorry, but Hi. The question is to Mr. Klymenko. Is there some progress in the U.S. case that we can hope for returning a large sum of money to Ukraine? Because you said that this year some changes are possible. Prosecutor General this year went to the U.S. Just like each Prosecutor General is going to the U.S. is discussing the case. Some steps are planned. However, we are still at the same spot as it was before. So as of now, we have no significant changes. Yep. Now the colleague will give the microphone. Kristina Lomenko, UN News, about the case of the former Deputy Prosecutor General Dmytro Verbitsky. There was the criminal case announced 3 years ago. What is the stage of investigation right now, and why still the suspicion hasn't been announced to the participants of the case? First, the criminal case was not announced. It started 3 years ago. Why again, without like attachment to that person. Why in certain criminal case we are not announcing the suspicion? Maybe because we are still collecting evidence and we are on this stage, and not each criminal case can end up with the suspicion, because sometimes we can just close that without it. So as of now, we have a range of like expertise assigned, and the pre-trial investigation is just going on. In case if we get enough evidence, we will inform about the suspicion. If not, then not. Thank you. Oh yeah, we still have some question. Irina Zhdanova, Ukrainian radio. Can you please tell us in more detail about the regional platform that was created in order to work with international partners, and what countries were like engaged? I read that in the report that you presented, in particular with Latvia, Estonia. So do you have this cooperation already? Yes, with the initiative of our Lithuanian colleagues, we created this regional platform that includes Baltic countries, Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia. Poland also is included, and if I'm not mistaken, yeah, Latvia and Lithuania and Ukraine, of course. And the main goal is to provide support and exchange information about efficient crime investigation related to using support provided by European partners. That is just for quick information exchange and exchange the results, typical corruption schemes, communication of detectives and sub-prosecutors with the detectives and prosecutors of our partners, like those international anti-corruption bodies like STEV and KNAB in Latvia and TBA in Poland. And in all these countries, they have some law enforcement bodies similar to SAPO and NABU. So that is just for quick information exchange. Let's give the floor to those who had Sophia Fesik, Channel 5, about the suspicion to that was already mentioned. Are there some maybe new data in this case? And also during the meeting, we heard that Ms. Olha Stefanishina could have impacted the committee on that is appointing NABU as well. And did you investigate this connection? Was it like she who needed that, or why Kirilenko was needed in one of the positions, for example, and what kind of consequences that could have had? Well, it's not a subject to investigation in this criminal case. The prosecutor just presented the data in the court in order to provide like information to give the reasons why that is needed. Why do we need to be careful? Because she was participating in the committee that was electing some like bodies. So it was just risk. It's not a subject of investigation. So we did not investigate it further on. And even more that actually the member of the committee is not a state actor. So the impact is not criminalized. So it's a certain gap. We need to work on it so that like the intervention into such committees is criminalized. Last two questions, and we are ending our event. Oleg and Serhiy. Yeah, thank you very much for the opportunity to ask the question. I would like to ask about the facts of about the people's deputies. Can you tell us about the fact of like illegal enrichment of people's deputies? So why you are not informing like about potential illegal enrichment of the people's deputy and his wife, Koval? Well, first of all, we cannot start the investigation against people's deputy. We are initiating that usually to Prosecutor General, and only then we get the response whether they've started the investigation or not. If yes, they are sending that to us or to NABU detectives, and then the investigation is happening. In most cases, we are going to Prosecutor General, and we are asking to start such an investigation so that we can conduct the pre-trial investigation and collect evidence. But in some cases, we are getting the negative response, even though the reasons to start the case against certain people's deputy, like we have enough reasons, but we don't have the tools how we can initiate that ourselves. So that is why we are mentioning that as a problem, because if we have some possibilities, we can start, can have more cases against people's deputies. By the way, the same question regarding the people's deputy, like 5 times per day, these questions are asked in different Telegram channels, but maybe the information is not introduced by the prosecutor general. But even if we are talking about some channels in Telegram, like we can investigate and we have the legal like conclusion that there is no violation, and same about other deputies, because the journalistic investigation about illegal enrichment of deputies, like we have a lot of such cases, and mostly we are reacting to that. That is, we are sending the relevant letter, and we can either confirm or deny this fact. Do I understand correctly that SSU, when they are like listening to NABU, so we know this for sure that they are listening to you? Yes, by the way, about the conflict or not conflict, we came twice to SSU asking to implement sanctions against one people's deputy, like from regional deputy, where he was noticed in Monaco by journalist Kachenko. And well, first time we got a response that there are no significant reasons for sanctions, but we are saying that on your resources, you were claiming that this person is the agent of the fifth FSB unit, and we still have no response till now, even though it was very active discussion back then, and there was certain reaction when we came publicly about sanctions. But unfortunately, sanctions are not implemented. But we can say that those were they who claimed, and we sent some evidence that they are on occupied territories, etc. But they also have some information, because when they were Ruslan Mohamedzuev, they were kind of seeing him, and we didn't talk about that, by the way, but they were saying that there is a lot of surnames of like Russians mentioned, and that Ruslan is such a traitor. And also the witness in his case was, and the judges had pressure those who provided the acquittal, and then everything is as it was, basically on the same stage. And by the way, it means that the consequences of the July events still remain. A lot of detectives are under investigation, in our opinion, for no reason, and nobody takes any measures. And the persons who had something to do with these attacks, and still they are in their positions, and they have some new positions, and they were even like promoted in their service, and nothing was made. And we know that our detectives, having the status of suspects, or for example their property was arrested, they are coming to the trials of different levels, and all the time we are documenting the calls from certain departments of SSU, and the pressure on those judges, and they don't inform about that. And we are documenting that on the level of certain information, or, for example, from our sources, so to say. But these judges are not coming for protection to Prosecutor General, as it is defined by law. And this pressure is happening like all the time. I just don't want to speak instead of them. They should speak about that out loud. But sometimes such things are happening there that it's just impossible for comprehension. And it looks like creating some pressure so that in any way, just not to provide the possibility to NABU detectives to protect themselves. However, if like so to say, or in procedural way, if that won't be made by the court, they came to the defenders and so to say, we have, yeah, we'll see, we will inform the society. Dear colleagues, thank you so much for finding time to come and to communicate with the heads of NABU and SAPO. Thank you to you for your time. Thanks to our international partners, thanks to whom this event took place in such a format. You know our contacts. If you still have some questions, please send your requests, call us, write us, we will help you.